Hey everyone, today we get Israel's request for a king. Then all the elders of Israel gathered together and came to Samuel at Ramah and said to him, "You are old and your sons don't follow in your ways. Appoint for us then a king to govern us, like other nations." But this thing displeased Samuel when they said, "Give us a king to govern us." Samuel prayed to the Lord, and the Lord said to Samuel, "Listen to the voice of the people and all that they say to you. For they have not rejected you, they've rejected me from being king over them. Just as they have done to me from the day I brought them out of Egypt to this day, forsaking me and serving other gods, they're also doing to you. Now then, listen to their voice. Only you shall solemnly warn them and show them the ways of the king who shall reign over them." But the people refused to listen to Samuel and said, "No, there must be a king over us so we can be like all the other nations. Our king will judge us and lead us and fight our battles." So I imagine God's response to Israel here is, if Assyria and Babylon jumped off a bridge, Israel, would you do that too? Because that's what they want, right? They all have kings, and we want to have a king like they do. God says that this is really a rejection of God's own kingship over his people, which, they want a king who will fight their battles for them. Which it's made even more ridiculous because the last scene before this is God helping them win a big battle against their enemies. Now, the big question to me is, if God sees this as rejection, if God knows it's a bad idea, why doesn't God say no? Now, God does give a big warning. We're going to talk about that tomorrow. But what we see here is that God gives the freedom to make bad choices. I talk about this a lot, as this is the idea of what is sometimes called the wrath of God. It's God giving us what we say we want, even when that may not be the best thing for us. And this does go pretty poorly. This request starts the trajectory towards the exile of Israel losing its home. And yet, God can still redeem this choice. This request is also what leads to the eventual Messiah. Jesus comes from the line of King David. And so through this line, God does become king over over Israel, over all the earth. It's kind of what they wanted in a way they didn't expect. So if this is what we believe, that that's the king we're actually following, we've got to follow his lead. Right? We've got to look at the way that Jesus leads, look at the way Jesus uses his power, and be careful not to start requesting other kings. When we feel threatened, not to listen to those who promise that they can give us a win. We don't need to be like everyone else. We don't need to go with how the world works, because we're not a part of this world. We are part of a different kingdom.